Okay, so Magic Find this league is ridiculous. Absolutely just broken. I've played around with it in the past, and usually you can invest into it, and then it still requires you to grind like absolutely crazy. You still want to be, really trying to get that volume of maps in there. Still very, very high investment, very high, I don't know. I find it very stressful to do regular Magic Find. This league's a little bit different. You can do Magic Find, it takes some effort to get set up. But once you're in there, the loot is overwhelming. Like, you will just crash the game if you press Alt. Like, actually, yeah, there's a warning there. Don't press Alt. You will crash the game with the amount of loot that drops. And that's with, not talking about investment, because obviously I'm wearing a Mage Blood. This isn't a cheap setup. But in terms of the effort putting it up, I switched my build over in about an hour. Probably about 1 more hour of kind of fine-tuning the strategy, changing my Atlas, learning all of the ins and outs of it. And after 2 hours of investment, time-wise, I was able to run these T7 maps that just, there's too much loot. Let me see if I still have the tab open. There's so much loot that it's overwhelming. There we go. That was a random timestamp. I just clicked on, and look, Divine, Exalt, and just overwhelming on your screen, the amount of loot that you get. It's really, really silly right now. That's what this video is. It is me showing you how to do it. However, what I did do is when I sat down last night, I kind of just rambled and talked for an hour. It is me kind of just stream of consciousness. It is roughly structured, but I kind of wanted to leave a lot of that extra detail in there. So the rest of this video is very rambly. It's more intended to be kind of like sit back and listen to all the extra stuff that I'm saying. There's a lot of extra information about, hey, maybe you could make some money doing this, or maybe here's my thoughts on whatever. And I wanted to make it, try something a little bit different. Let me know in the comments below if you like this style. There's timestamps and everything. But what I did for the people that just want the concise information, in the Pastebin link below, there is just the rough write-up of the notes of what you need to know to run the strategy. Really meant to be complimentary, a distilled version of everything that I say in the video. This is all you need to know. This is everything that I did that will do it. The rest of this video is just intended to be, listen to it in the background, listen to all the additional information, glance at it for whatever additional, visual feedback that you need. It's really something else. If you've ever been Magic Find curious and you're interested in doing it, this is the league to do it. There's a ton of supporting resources. I would say the majority of player base is probably doing some form of Magic Find right now, and it's definitely worth trying. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the video. Again, I'm trying to warn you ahead of time. It's going to be pretty rambly. I'm going to leave in all the additional little rambles that I do. And yeah, let me know if you like it. But, if not, again, all the notes are in the description below. And yeah, thanks for watching, and Happy New Year, guys. I'll see you guys next year. All right, enjoy. One of the most common questions that I've been getting on stream is, can you Magic Find with the SRS Guardian? Hold on. You guys might be hearing this. No, we got it muted. All right, good. Don't want the annoying Spectre screaming to ruin this entire recording. But yeah, I get asked pretty much nonstop on stream, or not nonstop, but a handful of times a day, whether you can Magic Find on SRS Guardian, and you go opening up Reddit and just seeing everyone feels that FOMO of, you see the pictures of 50, 100 divine drops, and everyone's going crazy in the Discord, in the community Discord that we have, nonstop pictures of people just posting their results. Let me see. I can just bring it over right now. This is what we're looking at right now. These are the pictures that people are posting of their results as they're doing Magic Find, making multiple divines, full stack of 6 links, nonstop crazy results this is from a single map, right? Like, this is how crazy it is. So anyway, yeah, it's really, really hard not to feel FOMO just being a normie. Look at this. Everyone, right? Just being a normie and trying to do an Elk and Go thing. Now, with that said, Elk and Go is very, very strong right now. In fact, this morning, I was sitting out a bunch of double corrupt temples that were just, kind of rotting in my stash. And I checked the price, and just a single Locus of Corruption, a tier 3 corruption chamber for Incursion, is selling for 2 divines each right now. So there's your hot little tip. If you don't want to do Magic Find, there's basically, be the person that's selling the shovel. Everyone out there is doing the gold rush. You can sell the shovel, rolling sextants, whatever, and make a ton of money. Deli orbs are 40 chaos per. Even the worst deli orb is 40 chaos per. I think Elk and Go could probably pull about 10 divines an hour this league easily. If you're doing incursion, Ashling is 4 divines right now. Sorry, I just want to get that out of the way. Like, even if you're not interested in Magic Find, you do not have to do this. You don't have to feel the FOMO. You can make a lot of money, selling the shovels to the people that are doing the Magic Find. However, this is my loot from a single map, by the way. That's what I have here right now. Magic Find is crazy lucrative at the moment, and I wanted to dip my toe into it. I wanted to be able to answer the question as to whether SRS Guardian could do it. As you can see, I'm wearing a Mage Blood. This is not a super, super cheap setup. With that said, you can get away with not using a Mage Blood. But, as always, Mage Blood makes things way better. So this is my Mage Blood that I got from the previous video. I did I opened some puzzle boxes. I got a Mage Blood, so I kind of earned it. Earned it myself with a little bit of gambling. But yeah, it's actually really, really easy to set it up. And the big thing that makes Magic Find so good this league, and also just to set define what Magic Find is, that is by scaling increased item quantity and rarity on your character. As we roll up our maps, right, the things that we have for our multipliers, it's all about number of items drop that also has the increased rarity that interacts with the arch nemesis modifiers that can convert, uniques into currency. So that's how you get those really big divine drops. Or it can convert it into flasks or whatever, right? And that's why you see all those scarabs. So the basic idea is get more items to drop, more chances for good items to drop. And so, when we roll up our maps, we're looking at item quantity, item rarity, and then monster pack size is, that's all a multiplier. How many monsters are you killing that are dropping how many items? Taking all of this into account, just to general theory and philosophy of Magic Find, a lot of people get really fixated on specific numbers of you have 35% increased quant versus 45% increased quant. But you can make up for that by just rolling a much bigger map, or you can make up for that by killing more monsters more quickly. And so you really have to pay attention to the inflection point of, how much you're nerfing your character. And because of that, that is why I went into a Mage Blood setup here to keep the power level of my character as high as possible, so I was still able to kill monsters quickly and not sacrifice the power of my character, right? Because if you have twice as much quantity, but you're killing half as many monsters, then it's effectively the same, right? It's about the number of items that are dropping, and the quantity and the pack size and the speed are all multipliers of that. So take that all into account as you're taking this all with a grain of salt, trying to understand this. Very long intro, but I wanted to just set the tone, set the stage. As always, I like to kind of ramble on and add all the context here, because I think that's really important. Again, this is not a budget setup. This is what I think is as long as you're willing to buy the Mage Blood, a very easy to get into setup that then can give you very, very good loot. And then the actual running of it, there's some effort, there's some setup and all that. Make sure that you enjoy the process. I would also go into it, sorry, more caveats. I would also go into it with the idea that maybe this isn't something that you like. You might actually just enjoy doing other things. The other thing is, how many monsters per hour are you killing? How much loot are you getting per hour? Maybe you don't like doing the magic finding. You find it annoying. You find it tedious. And you could do something like incursion temples for twice as long, even though you're making half as much money per hour. You're going to do it for twice as many hours. So, it's a wash, right? It'll break even. So take all that into account. So I'm going to go over the gear. I'm going to go over the setup of setting up the map and what I put into it and how I did it with the Atlas passive tree, and then we will do an example map. So this is going to be a pretty thorough video about how I did this. I've only been doing it for about 24 hours, so I'm not an expert, but this is my current understanding. I have spent a good amount of time talking to my friends that have been magic finding really, really hard for weeks now, or years even. So I do have some good context here that I can kind of explain things, but again, I am not the #1 expert. This is just my understanding of setting it up through SRS Guardian. And yeah, I'll put timestamps below so you can skip ahead, through all my rambling for whatever you want to get to. So first off, what is the setup for the SRS Guardian specifically? What did I do? Like I said before, the idea is you want to get as much rarity and quantity on your character. Also, first answer is, does it work on minions? The answer is yes. I researched it. I looked it up. There was a post from Mark GGG, the Mark GGG, 10 years ago, actually almost 12 years ago now at this point, when 2022 is almost 2 years ago. God. For in 2012, March AGG said that your character's item quant and rarity get added to the minion. They inherit it. So by stacking as much quant and rarity on our character, we're good to go. So just to get that out of the way, it does work on minions. You're going to see the regular suspects right here. You can go all out. There's a lot more that you can go into. You could go a really big rarity helmet. I did not bother doing that. Actually, if you just do a magic find item in Awaken PoE trade, it'll actually show you all of the go-to magic find items. So what I did is I did 2 Venters, I did Sedima's Touch, and I did Gold Worms. And as you can see, there are some other ones that you could slap in if you wanted to. However, for me, I didn't want to sacrifice too much character power. So like Abyssgos, right? I would rather wear a Mage Blood than have 5% increased item quantity, right? I already have about 40% quantity. Another 5% isn't worth giving up an entire Mage Blood. Divination Distillate is a hybrid flask. It is really, really annoying without the proper setup to keep it going, because the flask effect will actually go away if you hit max life and max mana, which, you know, we're always max mana because we're EB and we have a ton of life regen, and we don't want to turn that off or anything for just trying to maintain Divination Distillate, so I'm not doing that. Ascetic is a very, very weak amulet that gives you some more quantum rarity. Greed's Embrace, again, very, very weak body armor. We're not bothering with that. And then Centauri's Answer is a pretty weak shield that I think only gives you like 5% quant. We can double check that. Yeah, Divination Distillate is pretty good, right? 30% rarity and 12% quant. It is a really good flask if you can keep it going, but we just can't, you know, there's no way in this build without a pretty big rework. Yeah, oh, you get 8% quant from a Centauri's Answer. So not bad, but again, like the power that we would give up by giving up a really good minion shield, I think would not be worth it. This is the setup that I went with. Regular Sedima's Touch, well, shiny. I wanted to keep everything shiny here that I could, but Sedima's Touch, 10% quant. Gold Worms, you want these with the 20% quant roll. You just want a perfect roll. This was pretty cheap. These are not too expensive to get. And then 2 Venter's Gambles. These are not insane Venter's Gambles. And the big thing here is because we're using a Mage Blood, we can actually go for additional LE res on a flask for a suffix. The number one thing we care about here is the quant and the rarity. So get those rolls as close to perfect as possible. After that, I do value the life roll because I lost all of my life on my glove and my boots and my belt, actually. So I lost a good amount of life, and so I value that on my Venter's Gambles. However, on the res, we can kind of get away with some negative res and then kind of use a flask to make up for that. So just a single flask suffix, you don't have to run a Bismuth flask or anything, but you can see that if I just swap this out, I get a ton of res with the Mage Blood if you just have a single additional res on one of your flasks. So we got the 2 Venters. Neither one is really, really crazy expensive perfect. So that's the basic items that we're wearing for the Magic Find. And then we also have a gold flask right here. So again, if you've never used a Mage Blood, welcome to Mage Blood world. What you want to do is, ideally, you can buy a flask that has a fractured base. Makes it a lot easier to roll. You just want that increased effect on your prefix, and then you want particularly targeted suffixes. So I went for evasion rating, armor, and then movement speed on this one. That's just tier 2 movement speed. Because since the Mage Blood is always active, then you want to enkindle that to ideally 70% increased effect. That will give you 1.95x multiplier with the double increased effect on whatever the rolls are on the flask. I went for a Amethyst flask. I lost a lot of chaos res, so Amethyst flask here with increased armor, Granite flask with evasion rating, but again, if you need the res, you can do a Granite flask with elemental res, and then a Quicksilver flask with movement speed. And also remember, the suffixes can always be moved wherever. It doesn't really matter where they are, so you don't really have to worry about that. And then the big thing here is we're using a gold flask that has a crafted increased rarity on it. You get that from unveiling a Cinder Swallow flask, and this will give us 60% base increased rarity that then is multiplied times 1.95, the full enkindle and full increased effect. And so you can see if we go to miscellaneous, my rarity goes from 86% to 202%. I get almost 140% increased rarity, just this gold flask by itself, right? Which is pretty wild. So that's why we're using the Mage Blood. Again, you could get away with not using a Mage Blood, just regular instilled flasks, but you can just see the value, right, of using a Mage Blood setup here. And then the other big thing here, the reason why I found the Mage Blood basically mandatory to make this kind of more comfortable to use, is that the gold rims, I keep saying gold rim, the gold worms, there's a lot of outtakes of me saying gold rim over and over again. The gold worms are a 10% movement speed boot, which is just really, really frustrating and annoying to use as someone who just needs comfortable movement speed. So we can make up for that by having a enkindled Mage Blood movement speed. So we actually still feel really zippy walking around, even with a 10% movement speed boot. Yeah, that is all the gear changes that I made. And you can see that this gives me 49% quant and 202% rarity. And then the general theory here is that the reason why this is so good, this league, is the wisps, the purple, blue, and yellow wisps are actually multipliers against your character quantity. So normally all quantity is kind of just increased within itself. It's just, single number that you're increasing. And then, as we know, there's diminishing returns. Whereas if you go from 1% to 2%, that's a 100% increase. But if you go from 100% to 101%, that's only a 1% increase, right? However, if you get 10% increased quantity from a wisp setup, that's actually a 10% multiplier on whatever your quantity is. So that's just a straight up multiplier. 10% quantity from the wisps is 10% more no matter what, because it's a multiplier. And that is why Magic Find is so insane this league. And so the idea is get as much as you can on your character, and then you want to get as many wisps as possible in the Wildwood. And then when you come out, you have that all multiplied by your character. Ideally, you also need Delirium on the map. It all multiplies together to the point where you're getting insane drops. Okay, so that is the changes to my character. And now let's go into the setup and how you get in this. Like, what kind of maps do you roll? What do you do? Tier 7 Cemetery is the map that people really like to run. The reason for that is you can get Brother's Gift and Brother's Stash, but mostly Brother's Gift. It's a nice layout. It has good monster density, and it's just a really nice map to run that actually has a really good connected map as well. It also has Tropical Island. You can run Burial Chambers if you want to. Let's see. If I pull all of my Watchstones, Burial Chambers is tier 11. So if you're willing to do something a little bit harder, Burial Chambers will drop the Doctor, and it'll also drop the Fortunate. So if you want to go a little bit harder, you can do that, but it's not really recommended. What you want to do is set your favorite map to all Cemetery and then one Tropical Island, because this will work with your favorite maps that drop, connected maps, all that type of stuff. Really good for sustaining your map drops. You will over-sustain like crazy once you're set up. Getting your initial influx of maps, that could be a little bit annoying. You just start with a couple cemeteries and then you'll over-sustain very, very easily. All right, and the next thing that kind of feeds into all of this is Abyss. Abyss is actually the big, crazy multiplier that kind of kicks us all off. And we're going to try to get this on the screen real quick. So this is me fighting Abyss. You want to do this with always a Gilded Scarab right here. What this says is Abyss is an area that do not lead to an Abyssal Depths, and it cannot lead. This is the other reason why we run T7, is you cannot get an Abyssal Depths at tier 7, and this guarantees that you get a Stygian Spire. What the Spire does is it will shoot out projectiles, which we'll talk about in a second, that will spawn a bunch of rares. And what you can do, and I believe it does it at 75, 50, and 25% life, but it does need a couple seconds to do that spawning. So you want to very slowly poke at it till it hits those breakpoints, and then it spawns a bunch of rares. You do have to be very careful about killing the Spire. Crazy enough, I actually think SRS is exceptionally good at not killing the Spire, because things like Tornado Shot, anything with Ellie Prolif can accidentally kill the Spire a lot more easily. And we actually have a lot more control over our character here. Oh, one other thing that I did, kind of feeds into that. To have more control over how much damage we're doing, I have a very high investment version of my character. I have a lot more control over the damage that I'm doing because I am able to drop Unleash support here and keep the number of Raging Spirits that I am casting a lot lower. I can also replace the Unleash support with item rarity, give me an additional 69%, very nice amount of rarity. So I'm actually getting more than you're even seeing on the miscellaneous sheet right here. So I'm actually at 273% rarity, which is pretty cool. Anyway, to get back to the Abyss theory, the idea is we want to spawn as many projectiles as possible, because those projectiles that spawn the rares that come out of Abyss at the different breakpoints, 75, 50, and 25, will be scaled by the number of projectiles. We'll try to demonstrate this in the map real quick. So I'm poking at let's put it down to 1.2x speed here. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of poking at the Abyss, and I'm waiting until I see the Spire. So it's really hard to see whether the Spire comes out. Okay, so we got it. So I'm poking at it, right? And this is the Spire right here. Really, really hard to see when you've got Delirium and all the type of crazy stuff going on. But the idea is you want to poke at the Spire, just kind of get it down to a 75% breakpoint, and then you're going to see a lot. So this is it. When you see this big black explosion of goo come out of it, you're going to see a line of green dots that come out of the Spire. Let's get this going right here. So you can see all of these green dots came out of the Spire. That is multiplied by the number of projectiles on the map. And this is actually an example of not that many projectiles on the map. And so it'll shoot, oh, there we go. So you actually see more of them. So normally you would only see like 2 or 3 of these on a regular map, but because we have additional proj, we always roll additional proj on the map. So I guess we'll get into rolling the map right now. So we want to 20% quality it. We want to do our alchemy, and then we type proj right here. And it's actually the easiest thing is just chaos spam until you get additional proj like that. And then ideally you want the biggest roll map that you can. So, exalt it and everything till it's as big as possible. Even better, the best, the god tier map would be an 8 mod corrupted map that has +2 proj and beyond on the map. But as long as you have, good quant, you want to have over 100% quant. Bigger pack size is obviously ideal, but anything like that, as well as a map that you can run, the +2 proj. That's the baseline for a really good map to run. And then you want to just exalt it and try to make it as big as possible because you're going to be investing into every single one of these maps. But what you're going to do is, you get the additional proj to spawn, and then you want to kind of kite the rares away and kill them away from the spire. You don't want to accidentally kill the spire. So you kind of want to take your time here. So as you can see, we got another line of green dots. That means we hit the 50% breakpoint on the spire as well. I'm being very, very careful because I don't want to accidentally kill it. And then we're just going to sit here and kill the rares. And you can spend multiple minutes. As you can see, I've been in this map for 14 minutes now. You can spend multiple minutes on these rares, and you can see they just drop loot after loot after loot. And it's just nonstop. And this is one of my early maps. This is actually before I kind of perfected my technique. This was one of the very first maps that I ran. It's not even on, it's not even in Cemetery yet. And you can just see the amount of loot that's dropping in a tier 7 map right here. It's pretty wild. You really need a very fine-tuned loot filter. Mine is okay. You can go to my profile and follow it if you want to, but it's not, I need to keep tuning it because the amount of loot that drops is pretty crazy. And this is not even a really good example of how insane that it gets. So that's the general idea. We want to run Gilded Abyss Scarabs. We want to roll up our Cemetery with +2 proj, and then we want to have a good atlas. So I'll put a screenshot of this atlas below. This is pretty close to, I think, as perfect as I have found it. It's based on the general T7 atlas that everyone is passing around. I believe Garatha shared one of the initial versions of it. I tweaked it slightly because I really, really did not like Harbinger. I found Harby to be very unrewarding. However, I have found that Ritual, this is basically what I changed, my contribution, is that Ritual will actually spawn rares that, were spawned within that zone. And so you can get kind of double stacks of rares as long as you kind of have things located properly. So you can get a lot more results from Ritual and, maybe get lucky from some of the Ritual results. So I took out the points that people had invested into Harbinger and I put into Ritual. But besides that, the idea is that it is a 7th gate setup. Depending on your setup, we have access to Delirium, Beyond, and Abyss on the map device. And then it's a Wandering Path setup because we want the hat up here. Because if we have the full investment in the hat, getting over 50% increased additional proj on the map actually gives that 3 additional projectiles on the map. So that gives us more proj, more things that are spawning in Abyss. We want to take all of the Abyss nodes that we can that scale more monsters, more monsters, more monsters, more abysses. The other thing that I did as a tweak here, there are multiple ways that you can spawn Delirium. Delirium does give you more quant, more monsters on a map. Deli is pretty mandatory, and there's 3 different ways that you can have Deli on the map. You can use Deli Orbs or Deli Mirror, and then within the Deli Mirror setup is you can either force the Deli Mirror, you can hope that it shows up, which is never a really good choice, or you can use Sextants. I bought this 16-use Sextant for 6 Divines, and that was that was actually a worthwhile investment, crazy enough. Expedition and Strongboxes showing up are just nice. We're not heavily invested into these, but we do want to use, I'll list the Sextants in a minute, but the thing is everything is intertwined, so I can't just talk about one thing and say, oh, we'll get to that later. It's all connected. Delirium, you can force it either, putting Deli on the map device, or you can use Sextants. I guess we should break it down into the things that you're going for. You're going for Abyss, Beyond, and Delirium. These are the 3 things that are really connected that you want to get as much as possible of all of these. Ideally, you get Beyond on the map, you have Beyond on the Atlas passive tree, and then even better is if you also have Beyond on your Sextants. So all 3 of those together will give you more Beyond monsters. And then we're using Endless Tide right here to guarantee that we never get a Beyond boss. We're always spawning Beyond monsters. Ideally, you have Speaker for the Dead. You kind of just has those Tormented Spirits in your map. You ideally want to be running a Tormented Scarab and you just do the ghost busting like we did last league. And yeah, that's about it. It's Wandering Path, as much quant as possible. Abyss, Beyond, and Delirium are really the three things that feed into each other. And then Strong Boxes and Expedition are kind of the honorable mentions as well. So that's the Atlas passive tree. In terms of the scarabs, I am running Gilded Abyss is mandatory. This is the level where it says it, leads to a Stygian Spire. This is absolutely mandatory. Gilded Ambush is really, really nice because we want to run, and I'll talk about the Sextants in a second. Gilded Reliquary, because more unique items. We get that Arch Nemesis conversion of uniques into currency or whatever. And then Gilded Torment is really, really good. You can kind of choose your own adventure here. If you're still using Harbinger, you can do that. But if we're doing Speaker for the Dead, Gilded Torment is really good. You just find the ghost. Particularly, you can go straight to the abysses, run through the rares as your minions are killing them, and get a lot more magic find there. If you don't want to do Speaker for the Dead, something like Gilded Elder Scarab adds a lot more monsters to the map, is really good as well. So these are the scarabs that I recommend. Of course, if you go to Winged for any of these, it is much better. I think Winged, particularly if you're doing higher investment maps, Winged Abyss is probably the best one that you want to do. But all of these, Winged is even better. So this is our scarab setup. And then, of course, you need your 5-way map device to make sure you do at least one 4-way to get that. All right, and then in terms of sextants, like I said, I like to use a Mirror of Delirium sextant. However, that is very optional. I am actually able to run a map at 80% Delirium, and I would actually prefer that. There's a lot more value out of running higher percent Delirium here. And then if your build can handle it, that's even good. However, like I said, it is 40 chaos per Deli Orb. So spending 160 chaos per map on the Deli Orbs kind of feels bad, even for the cheapest Deli Orbs. So that kind of felt bad. The most cost-effective way would be to put Delirium on your map right here. But I really want to run Abyss just to have an additional Abyss. Like, you get so much loot per Abyss that I really think Abyss is probably best in slot right here. You want to choose, do you want to invest into Deli Orbs? You can just use a single Deli Orb. That's totally fine too. And that is cheaper than buying the Sextant, but I bought the Sextant because, it's all about, whatever you're comfortable buying. Very, very mandatory. Additional Abyss, this is the number one that you want to go for. What I'm doing for the final two is Strongbox monsters are enraged, as well as 2 additional strong boxes and making them rare and corrupted. So these are the 4 sextants that I'm running. Those are kind of the general go-to sextants. There's additional stuff that can be okay, like Legion isn't that bad. There's a lot of stuff that you can do if you don't want to go into strong boxes. And my strong box rewards haven't been particularly crazy myself personally. I've definitely been getting most of the loot from Abyss. So, that's all optional for you. Think that is all of the changes. That is all the baseline. So just to quickly summarize, you want to roll additional proj on your map, roll it as big as possible, and then you're going to be running a set of Gilded Abyss, Gilded Reliquary, Gilded Torment. You can run Divination instead of Torment if you want to, or Divination or Elder instead of Ambush, depending on if you want to go into strong boxes or whatever you're going to go into. And then let me try to buy some of these sextants right here, and we'll set this up and we'll do a run. I'll just show you guys like a very quick part of it. Like, we'll do one Abyss because they take very, very long. And I'll just show you the technique a little bit here. There's so many little details that you have to get right here. So I recognize that this is a long, rambly video, but I think it's important to make sure that everything is kind of sorted out and you understand everything that goes into this. There's a lot to really nail down here. So I got the Mirror of Delirium. And again, because we're using Unending Nightmare, that will never end, so we don't have to worry about that going away. You can use Deli Orbs if you want to instead. Then we're going to use additional strong boxes. Make sure you don't click on the wrong one. Let me grab the other ones right here real quick. We got Abyss and we have Enraged. So strong boxes, Enraged, Abyss, and Delirium. We have all cemeteries and 1 tropical island at tier 7. That's only with 1 stone in. We have that favorited. Then we have our map that we rolled right here, with a Gilded Abyss, Gilded Ambush, Gilded Reliquary, and Gilded Torment. And there's still some RNG that we have to worry about here. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we cannot run altars. Really unfortunately, because we're doing the T7 strat, we cannot run altars whatsoever, so we don't progress the boss tier. We're not getting Awakened Sextants or anything. That's why you can do other stuff to make a lot of money. We're not getting Deli Orbs because we're running Unending Nightmare. If I wanted to, I could add something like Elva for additional quant, more money, but we're not going to worry about that right now. And yeah, let's kick it off. So we open up the map, and then as soon as we see it open, there we go. Wow, that took a very long time. That was a little scary. As soon as the map actually opens, because it's an investment every time you do it, you actually want to take out 3 stones and leave it so cemetery is tier 7. It's weird because when the map is opened, it will consume everything and it will proc the map. But then when you're running the map, that's actually what dictates what you get for map drops. And so for our tier 7 map to drop, we actually have to pull 3 of our stones. But there's no downside to this whatsoever. And let's turn the sound up a little bit. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys. And we'll go in there. All right, so unfortunately in the recording last night, the volume that I turned up in the game was too loud, so we're going to keep that muted. These specters are super obnoxiously loud. So we're just going to run this back again, show you how we're doing this. So cemetery with additional proj, use exalts, try to roll it up as big as possible. Even better would be beyond on it. Then I'm using a Gilded Abyss, mandatory, and then either a Gilded or Winged Reliquary. I actually ran out of Gilded, so I'm just throwing in my one wing that I have, Gilded Ambush and Gilded Divination, where you can also run Torment instead of Divination if you want to. Hopefully this is not unlucky. So there is some RNG still here. The amount of wisps that you get, you can just get unlucky. Even if you know the techniques, if you do the right thing, you can just spawn with no wisps near you whatsoever. And you can find at, maybe at best, you'll find like 3,000 or so at the top end. And you can get really unlucky and get like 1 to 2K, which is just really, really unlucky to the point where you should probably just kind of blast the map quickly. Don't spend a lot of time on each abyss, really trying to milk it for all the rares, just to get to the next map that has way better juice. So we're going to hit the Deli Mirror and then immediately go into the Wildwood. We're going to look for wisps right away. This is really good. We have both purple on, I guess just purple on both sides. Try to touch the darkness as little as possible. Just follow the wisps, but in the diamond direction. The idea is the events will spawn north, south, west, and east, and you want to pretty much go in a circle and go from event to event, spawn them ASAP. And as soon as I don't see any more wisps, all right, we have one event here. I am going to assume that this is the bottom middle event, the south event. So whatever direction the wisps lead us, we want to go to the west here and try to find the kind of go up and to the left here. And, you're going to be following the wisps in the direction that it leads you, but you don't have that much control over it. All right, let's go back here and see if there's no wisps there. There's wisps here. Because I really want to get to another event. All right. We're going to go up this way. We are getting a nice overall mix, which is really good. We like that for ourselves here. All right. We found the next event. So I'm assuming... Let's see where these events are relative to each other. Is this straight up and down? Or is this kind of down to the right here? All right, this looks like kind of down to the right. Okay. So I'm going to assume the next event would be up and to the right from this. But because there's no wisps there, we really want to be methodical and kind of slow about this. Because there's no wisps there, we're going to be very careful about touching the darkness. Just get up to the event that we uncovered here. And then try to follow the wisps. Well, it tapped out. Okay. That can happen. Not the best luck. But we have more wisps than last time I tried. Now what we want to do is rim the edge. As people have been saying recently, we're going to rim the edge and try to get as many wisps as possible that we can. We have about 3,300 or so right now. Maybe a little bit more than that. Didn't collect everything here. Might be some decent stuff we can get on the edge. Yeah, not ideal. My record is about 7,000 or 8,000. I am not the best at this. There's a lot of RNG that goes into it. There's only so much that you can do. Okay, so what's that? That's about 3,500, and it's a decent mix of all three as well. Now, mostly what you're going to do here is clear the map pretty regularly. Normally, you're not going to do anything particularly crazy except for when you're fighting abysses. So we're just going to go straight to the abyss and do that, and I'll show you guys how to do it. I'm going to mouse over every single leather belt. Because that could be my headhunter, you know? Oh, we had quite a bit of stuff spawn here. Okay, so with the Abyss, like I've been saying, the idea is that we want to spawn the Spire. We have guaranteed to get the Spire because it's a T7 map and we have a Gilded Scarab. So it can't lead to an Abyssal Depths, and we're forcing Spire there. But we want to be very, very careful to not kill the Spire when it spawns. So I kind of poke at the monsters that are spawning when it comes out, and then I look for it to move, and I know it's safe to kill everything. But a Spire could spawn from pretty much anything. Any one of the times that it comes out. Now we're going to back up a little bit. That looks like that might be the Spire. Can't see. Close the loot filter. All right, no Spire yet that I see. Nope, no Spire yet. That was just one of the rare mobs. Also does a big black and green spit. Backing up, but that projectile thing is very similar to the projectile thing that the Spire spits out. All right, we got a bunch of rares here. We're gonna kill these. But yeah, it's tedious. It can take 15, 20 minutes for a map if you really take your time. But the loot is worth it for the reward. And hopefully we get something juicy. Yeah, look at so there you go. There's a little bit of an example. Okay, so there's the Spire. Okay, perfect. Okay, so as you can see, we poked it. I immediately backed up after hitting it a little bit, and you see all these green dots on the minimap, and that's basically the additional projectiles that are spawning rares. It's something that spawns rares based on additional proj. And you can see there's a lot of them now, and it's all going to be spawning rares pretty much nonstop for a while. And we just kill these and hope we get a really big loot explosion from an arch nemesis, conversion modifier, kind of back up, stay a little safe here. You don't want to kill the Spire right away, and you don't want, since we're minion build, we want to keep our Spectres and AG safe and everything. And we do want to cast a good amount, so I can now put Unleash back in. I am being kind of overly safe here. I'm going to put Unleash back in versus item rarity is really optional. Just so I have some more damage. All right, looks like we did kill the Spire eventually, but we killed quite a few rares. And if I turn on the loot filter, okay, there we go. There was a nice loot explosion. So this is how much can spawn, and some of this can be out, like much of this might have been out of one monster. All that's one monster spawned all of these uniques, and yeah, we got a Taste of Hate, pretty nice. Hopefully it's perfectly rolled. That'd be really cool. And you gotta hopefully you can recognize uniques, and you gotta mouse over all of them and take your time. Really, you should have a very, very strict loot filter. Mine, you can follow it. It's on my profile. Mine is like relatively strict, but it's not as strict as I would like it. I want to keep tweaking it. So you can just look up a Magic Find loot filter from someone else as well. So yeah, that's the technique with the Abyss. That's really all you need to know. Take your time with it. As you can see, and this is only with 3,500 wisps, by the way. This is not nearly as insane as it can get with 5 to 10,000. Like when you really hit that threshold, it gets pretty insane, and it's actually kind of overwhelming. Welcome to Magic Find in 3.23. There's a good chance that it will never be this strong again. This is really out of band. It is a multiplier on all the power that we've had up until now. There's never been anything like this before. They're particularly accessible for individual players, non-party Magic Find teams. But yeah, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed all the rambling and everything. Try to add as much additional context as I could, and I gave you guys, hopefully just the resources below for people that wanted to too long didn't watch. But if you're here, that means you did watch. So thank you, appreciate you guys, and yeah, hopefully you have many, many divines drop. Thanks for watching. Later.